I received a call from my husband Lucas in the middle of the night while I was on a business trip abroad. His words hit me like a truck. "Hey, I want a divorce." I froze. I barely managed to say anything. In the back of my mind I had always feared this day would come, but I never thought he would mention it while I was so far away. "What do you mean? Can you explain it properly?" I asked with a trembling voice. Lucas let out a bitter laugh. "Probably you didn't notice, but I have a mistress. She is younger and prettier than you. We even have a son together. So I want you to divorce me so I can be with them." I stayed silent. He continued as if he wanted to make everything clear. "I already sold the house and the car." He paused, clearly waiting for my reaction. I took a deep breath and replied in a calm and brief way. "All right." On the other side of the line there was an astonished silence. Murmured Lucas, confused. Maybe he thought I would start crying or begging him not to leave, but I didn't. I had prepared myself for this possibility for a long time. His words did not make me tremble the way he surely expected. A few days later, when I returned home, things were already different. Lucas was waiting for me at the airport and he looked very nervous. But let me tell you a little about myself before I get to that. My name is Elena Vargas. I am 35 years old and I am a homemaker. I grew up in a normal middle-class family. Since I was a child I loved learning languages, so I started taking classes from elementary school. In high school I also discovered I had a talent for English. During my university years I had the opportunity to stay with a host family in Italy. It was at that moment when I started dreaming of working in an international company. To make that dream come true I enrolled in the business program at one of the best universities. While studying I spent time abroad in Italy and I worked very hard to achieve my goals. Finding a job after graduating was not easy at all, but I was very excited when I got a position at my second choice. My family was very proud of me and my sister even told me, "Elena, you are incredible. We are so proud of you. Take care and do your best." That support meant everything to me. However, starting my new job was complicated. It was much more demanding than I expected. Although the company treated its employees well, the standards were extremely high. I was barely 20 years old with little experience, so many times I had to work long hours. My co-workers and supervisors always supported me, and the most important thing was that I found joy doing the work I had always dreamed of. After working hard for several years, my efforts were finally recognized. I started receiving more important tasks and my friends used to say things like, "You are on your way to becoming a successful businesswoman. You are such an amazing and strong woman." But despite how people saw me, I had a weakness for cute things. I loved collecting items of my favorite characters and I even slept with plush toys. I always wanted to have a pet, but my busy job made it impossible. So on my days off I liked to go to cat cafes to relax. At work I maintained a professional and serious image, never showing my softer side. Maybe because I was so busy I longed for comfort in those little things. As I grew older, many of my friends began to get married and have children. At the weddings people used to tell me that I should get married soon too. I would laugh and say, "I am too busy with work." The truth was I wasn't. I didn't feel any romantic interest in anyone at work or among my business contacts, and I also didn't have time to meet someone new. I wondered if I was destined to stay single forever. At that time I thought it was fine. I liked focusing on my career and it didn't seem like a bad way to live. One day I went to another friend's wedding. As always I applauded the couple, but this time I felt a little uneasy. I was already over 30 and if I wanted to get married I knew I needed to start looking for someone soon. Later the reception moved to a bar. I found myself sitting alone at the counter with a drink in my hand, watching the other guests laugh and the bride and groom smiling shyly. Suddenly a voice interrupted my thoughts. "Are you alone? Can I sit here?" The voice was soft and pleasant and it took me by surprise. "Oh sure," I replied while turning to see the man. He was about my height, which is quite tall for a woman. He seemed younger than me. His face was ordinary but in a pleasant way, although not exactly what I expected from someone with such a nice voice. "Are you here for the wedding?" he asked. "Yes, I am a friend of the bride," I replied. "I am also a friend of the bride from high school. The groom invited me." We nodded and began to chat while drinking. "Wow, you work at that international company?" he commented, surprised. "I have heard about that company. It is incredible. For someone like me who is just an employee at a small company, it seems like you come from another world." The man introduced himself as Lucas and I found it very easy to talk to him. Before saying goodbye we exchanged contacts and started seeing each other after that. Lucas was 3 years younger than me and he worked in sales at a small company. He had a kind personality. He was a great listener and knew how to give sincere compliments. I enjoyed spending time with him very much. After some dates, Lucas confessed that he had feelings for me and I happily accepted to date him. Although his annual income was less than a third of mine, that didn't matter to me at all at that moment. The more time we spent together, the more adorable Lucas seemed to me. I didn't see him as someone super impressive or completely reliable, and maybe that is why I never felt disappointed in him. On the contrary, I loved his tender and sincere nature. He would say things like, "I would love to try your cooking." I couldn't resist and happily cooked for him. After dating for about a year and a half, Lucas surprised me with a ring. "I love how you're always so incredible, but you also have this cute side. If you agree, will you marry me?" It took me by surprise, but I was excited. I accepted the ring with a smile. "Thank you, Lucas. Let's take care of each other as husband and wife," I told him. Lucas was over the moon, practically jumping with joy, and his happiness made me laugh. After that, we met our families to share the news. Lucas's parents were kind and simple people, and they blessed our marriage gladly. My family also supported me, and my parents told Lucas to take good care of me. My sister, who was already married, teased me in a low voice. "He seems just the type of person you would choose, knowing your weakness for cute things, but don't spoil him too much, okay?" I laughed and replied, I know. That was how my life with Lucas began. Since we were starting from zero, I decided to buy a condo. It was a big decision, but I thought it would be a good investment for the future. I chose a slightly larger place, thinking about the possibility of having children someday. I believed our happy married life was about to begin. But reality hit me hard. Lucas didn't know how to do any household chores. Lucas had depended on his parents, especially his mom, for everything until the day of our marriage. I tried to be patient and told him, "Lucas, now that we are married, we must share the household tasks. If you don't know how to do something, I can teach you." But Lucas frowned and replied, "What? Now that we are married, isn't it your job to take care of the household chores?" I looked at him seriously and answered firmly, "No, Lucas, household chores are the responsibility of both of us. I also have a very busy job. It will be a problem if you can't even handle the basic things." With determination, I said, "Come on, get up. I will teach you how to use the washing machine." I took the time to teach Lucas the basics of household chores. At first he didn't seem very interested, but little by little he began to do some cleaning and laundry. However, his efforts always remained half done, and many times I had to redo most of what he did. In the kitchen it was a total disaster, so I decided to take charge of preparing the meals in advance. I didn't want to discourage him, so I made an effort to praise him even for the small things he did. I thought encouraging him would help, but instead of improving, Lucas started doing less and less. He knew I would always end up doing it, so he began to take advantage of my patience. Finally, I couldn't hold back anymore. "Lucas, you have to stop depending on me so much. Learn to do the household chores properly. I am also busy with work and I have business trips. You also have to take care of things." Lucas frowned and replied, "What's wrong with you? You have changed since we got married. You were always scolding. You earn good money, so if you were going to complain so much, why don't you hire someone to do the household chores?" I was stunned. Yes, I earned a decent income, but spending money without thinking could quickly drain our savings. Despite having talked to him about this several times, Lucas refused to change. Then about a year after we got married, I came home and found Lucas sitting pale in the living room. "Lucas, what is wrong? You don't look well," I asked. He sighed and admitted, "My company is declaring bankruptcy because of the recession. I will be out of a job next month." What surprised me was that although Lucas had been working overtime more often lately, I had no idea his company was in such bad shape. "And what are you going to do? Have you started looking for a new job?" I asked. "I will think about it later," he replied. "I am tired and stressed. I just need some time." I decided to give him space, thinking he needed time to process everything. But after his company closed and he was left without a job, Lucas spent all day playing video games. He didn't do any household chores, and when I came home late, I would find him sitting in front of the television completely absorbed in his games. This continued for months and my patience reached its limit. One day I finally told him, "Lucas, haven't you rested enough? Don't you think it is time to start looking for a job?" He looked up. "I want to think carefully about my next job," he replied. "You know, in my old job they only used me. Next time I want a job where I can achieve something meaningful, like self-realization or whatever." Although I wanted to tell him he was talking nonsense, I knew I couldn't force him to work. So even after his unemployment benefits ran out, I continued supporting him. One day while he was glued to his video games, I said sarcastically, "If you like games so much, why don't you try streaming them? You could earn some extra money." To my surprise, Lucas's eyes lit up. "That is a great idea. You are very smart, Elena. Thank you. This is an opportunity. I have a good feeling about this." he said, full of enthusiasm. For someone who hadn't done anything for months, it was a sudden change, and I wasn't sure if it was something good or bad. Then you will need a PC and streaming equipment, he added casually, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. I blinked, surprised. I don't have savings, I replied, but he insisted, please would you buy it for me? Reluctantly I bought everything he needed. Deep down I thought this would fail and he would finally realize he needed to get a proper job. But a few months later things took a surprising turn. Lucas became popular as a game streamer under the name he chose. To my surprise, he even began to rank on the lists. Online fans left positive comments saying things like his voice was very pleasant and that he was funny. The fact that he was bad at the games managed to attract both men and women, and he even hit his face partially on the camera, which drew attention. Of course, he never mentioned that he was married. See, I told you I could succeed when I tried. The world finally recognizes my talent, declared Lucas, full of himself. Despite his success, he didn't show even a bit of gratitude for all the support I had given him or for buying the equipment that started everything. Still, I approached him calmly. Lucas, I am glad things are going well for you, but don't you think you should contribute part of your earnings to our household expenses? It has been a while since your unemployment benefits ended, and I have been covering them. Lucas looked at me as if I had said something absurd. Why should I? You earn enough to handle living expenses. Let's keep our finances separate. I was stunned. True to his words, Lucas kept all his streaming income for himself. By this point, the kind and considerate man I had dated was long gone. He had become completely selfish and dependent on me. At that time I bought a luxury car, the car I had always dreamed of having. I only drove it on weekends, but I cherished it like a treasure. One day Lucas said casually, hey, let me drive your car. I raised an eyebrow and replied, you work from home. You don't need a car for streaming. Why would you want to drive it? He insisted, we are married so it is fine. Come on, let me drive it. Finally I gave in and handed him the keys, although afterward it didn't feel right. Lucas began going out whenever he wanted during the weekdays while I was at work. His popularity as a streamer continued to grow and he gained a large number of followers. He also began to live a flashy lifestyle, dressing in expensive designer clothes. I felt sad seeing how much he had changed, but since we were still married I continued our life together, hoping things could improve. When we entered the 5th year of our marriage, my career was thriving. I was given more responsibilities at work and I often had to travel abroad for business trips. Sometimes I would be away for a few days, other times up to 4 weeks. Every time I came home the house was a complete mess, like a dumpster. Lucas spent all his time locked in his room streaming. He still depended on me for everything and never helped around the house. We barely talked anymore and I found myself wondering why I was still married to him. It was then that I began collecting evidence for the divorce and making plans. One day I told Lucas I would be going abroad again the next day for a 3-week business trip. Take care. He didn't even look up from his phone. I went on my trip and immersed myself in my work. On the 11th night of my trip I received a call from Lucas. Hello Lucas, do you know what time it is here? It is midnight. Then he dropped the bomb. Hey Elena, I want a divorce. I froze. What I managed to say was, I had suspected this might happen someday, but I never thought you would mention it while I was on the other side of the world. What do you mean? Can you explain it properly? I asked, trying to keep calm. Lucas chuckled. Probably you haven't noticed, but I have a mistress. She is younger and prettier than you. We even have a son together. I said nothing, so he continued. I want you to divorce me so I can live with my mistress and our son. Oh, and I already sold the house and the car. He sounded so confident, as if he expected me to break down, but I didn't. I simply said it was all right. What Lucas stammered was that he must have thought I would cry or beg him to stay. He had no idea that I had been mentally preparing for this moment for a long time. You want a divorce? All right, I said calmly. There is a complete divorce paper in the living room drawer. You can sign it and submit it yourself. Lucas was shocked. You had the divorce papers ready? Well, thanks for making it easy. Goodbye. Then enjoy being the woman your husband left behind. He let out a laugh, but I replied, sure. Well, I am going back to sleep. Goodbye, Lucas. I hung up and immediately blocked his number. I called my sister and asked her for a favor. Then I went to bed and slept peacefully until the next morning. I focused on my work and stayed busy until my trip ended. Finally, the moment to return home arrived. The business class seat provided by my company was so comfortable that I fell asleep during the flight. When I woke up, I stretched and thought it had been a good nap without jet lag for me this time. I was ready to return to normal life. After landing, I picked up my luggage and headed toward the airport lobby. When I reached the exit, suddenly I heard someone. Hey Elena. I turned to see Lucas running toward me, looking in panic. Oh, why are you here? I asked, surprised. I don't remember asking to be picked up. Lucas did not respond directly. Instead, he began to rant. His words came out in bursts. What have you done? The car, the house, because of you. I took a step back, startled by his strange behavior. I don't understand. What are you talking about? I said calmly. I can leave. I am already tired. First, I presented the divorce papers after you told me. I see. I replied, moving and barely paying attention. Are you even listening? Lucas broke. When I went home to meet with the real estate agent about selling the house, there was a lock on the door. I couldn't enter. Then when I tried to use the car, there was an anti-theft lock on the tires and I couldn't drive it. I tried to call you, but you didn't answer. You blocked my number. I let out a small sigh. Yes, I blocked your calls, and what about it? Lucas's face turned red with anger. You did it. You put the lock on the house and the locks on the car tires. How did you do that when you were abroad? I shrugged. I asked my sister to take care of it. His eyes widened in surprise. Your sister? Yes, I said, keeping my tone light. You said you sold the house and the car. I remember, but when my sister checked, both were still there. So I guess you were just lying. Probably you were just getting estimates from the agents. Lucas's face turned even redder and he stammered, well, yes, that is true, but I was about to sell them. I couldn't help sighing while Lucas continued ranting. No, Lucas, you couldn't have sold the house or the car even if you had tried. Both are in my name and all the important documents needed to sell them are at my parents' house. Lucas froze without any expression. What? He murmured. Did you really think someone could sell a house or a car by saying I am selling this without being the legal owner? Obviously they need proof of ownership and the proper documentation. I said, shaking my head. Lucas seemed completely stunned. His mouth opened and closed like a fish. You always left all the complicated paperwork to me during our marriage, so of course you don't know. I even understand something so basic. I added with a hint of disgust. Lucas's face twisted with frustration. If you knew they couldn't be sold, why did you put locks on the house and the car? Because of you I couldn't enter the house or use the car. It was horrible. I sighed again. Why would I let someone who cheated on me with a mistress and demanded a divorce have free access to my house? The same with the car. They're in my name, so we made sure. I can't believe you were doing all this just because I couldn't sell your stupid property. You are not that nice. That is what I hated about you. Always acting like you could handle everything yourself. So arrogant for a woman. I stayed calm and replied, oh really? Then why did you marry me in the first place? Lucas snorted, obviously for your money. The fact that you worked at an international company and earned good money. That was the only reason it was worth marrying. His words dripped with malice, but they didn't affect me. I just looked at him thinking, well, come to think of it, there wasn't much benefit in marrying you either. Lucas's face turned red with anger. Don't act so high and mighty. I am the one leaving you. My mistress is much better than you. Hundreds of times prettier, and she even gave me a son. Doesn't that make you feel inferior? She is a better woman than you think. I couldn't help smiling slightly. Better than me, huh? I replied. What is so funny? Snapped Lucas. Still smiling, I reached into my bag and took out a photo. Is this your mistress? I asked, showing him a photo of a young, attractive woman in her 20s. Lucas's eyes moved nervously when he recognized her. You knew about Miriam? He stammered. I gave him a sweet smile. Of course. You are not the only one who wanted the divorce. I have been gathering evidence for a while. You are so careless, Lucas. Didn't you realize that the dashboard camera also records the interior? I said, watching as his face turned pale. But I didn't stop there. Once I saw when you met her in the dashboard camera images, it was easy. I hired a private investigator to gather more information. The evidence didn't take long to identify your mistress. Lucas's face froze and I added that I was a little surprised to discover that she was already pregnant. Although he stood there stunned before finally saying, don't do anything to her. She has been through a lot after giving birth. She is young, she has no money, and she didn't even know I was married. I raised an eyebrow, pretending to be concerned. Wow, you are really defending her. You must love Miriam very much. Of course I do, he said firmly. She is pure sweetness and my soulmate. I will protect her and our son no matter what. While Lucas prided himself on his own righteousness, I quietly took out my phone and played a video. It was footage from my car's dashboard camera showing Lucas driving with a very pregnant Miriam sitting in the passenger seat. Thank you for taking me for a ride today, said Miriam in a sweet voice. The food was delicious too. Lucas's face in the video lit up with pride. You are so good at saying thanks. What a good girl, he said with an air of superiority. I want to marry you soon. Miriam pouted and crossed her arms. Really? Then hurry up. Get up and divorce that old witch. I want you to be my husband before the baby is born. All right. Lucas's voice in the video calmed her. Just wait a little longer. I will take care of everything. While she is on her business trip abroad, then we will be together. You and the baby will live comfortably with the money from selling the house and the car. I paused the video and looked at Lucas. So Miriam didn't know you were married, huh? It seems she is quite aware of it. Lucas was pale and sweating. Before he could say anything, I dropped another bomb. About her being pure, maybe you want to look more closely. What are you trying to say? Shouted Lucas. I took out a stack of photos and scattered them on the floor. Lucas's face paled with every photo he looked at. What is this? Who are these men? The photos showed Miriam with different men holding hands, entering hotels, and even receiving prenatal checkups with a man who was not Lucas. That is really Miriam, I said calmly. She looks for popular streamers for relationships. Let me guess, you started as a streamer and she was just another fan. Lucas stood frozen, unable to speak. He fell to his knees, grabbing one of the photos of Miriam with his face white from shock. Looking with pity, I said in a soft, almost understanding voice, you really are something else, Lucas. You plan to raise a child that might not even be yours. I said this bluntly, looking at Lucas. He murmured to himself as if in shock, no, Miriam told me I was the only one. This can't be true. I looked at him without emotion. Can I leave now? We are basically strangers at this point. There is nothing left to discuss. Suddenly Lucas came out of his stupor and started shouting, if you hadn't shown me all this, I could have stayed happy. How cruel can you be? Because of you I can't trust anything anymore. I couldn't help sighing, feeling nothing but annoyance. That is not my problem, Lucas. Do you even hear yourself? Whatever, do what you want. He sneered and said, fine. Even if I divorce you and leave Miriam, I will still be fine. I have more than 3 million followers as a streamer, and now I am earning much more than you. Bad luck for you. You are losing a famous streamer as a husband. Serves you right. I smiled sweetly and told him, why don't you check your phone? Lucas froze for a second before grabbing his phone with a petulant look. As he unlocked it, his face turned pale. What is this? He said, seeing more than 1,000 notifications. What is happening? He scrolled frantically through his screen. His expression became more horrified with every second. Finally, he looked at me, trembling. Elena, you didn't, he murmured. With the biggest smile of the day, I replied, oh, I did. I exposed everything online, how you were married, had a mistress and a son, and how horribly you treated me. Lucas let out a scream that echoed in the airport lobby and caused people around us to stare. He completely lost control. What have you done? My reputation, my followers, my entire career is ruined. Look at these messages. They call me the worst man in the world. They say I betrayed everyone. Casually, I raised my phone, tilting my head playfully. Oh, by the way, this whole scene is being broadcast live. Wow, look, there are more than 5 million viewers. They love it. Lucas's face twisted in panic and he lunged at my phone. Give me that. But it was too late. His horrible words and his breakdown were already there for everyone to see. While he collapsed on the ground, the airport floor was filled with rage and desperation. I walked calmly past him and headed toward the taxi stand, feeling lighter than I had in years. Afterward, Lucas faced intense backlash online. His entire career came crashing down. His success had been based on the image of a sweet single man with a charming voice that attracted many female fans. But now that image was completely destroyed. The fact that Lucas was secretly married surprised his followers, who felt betrayed. But the scandal didn't end there. The news of his mistress and son made even his male followers go crazy. They called him unfaithful and the story was filled with juicy details. He hid his marriage, cheated on his wife, and then they discovered the child might not even be his. This became a hot topic online that attracted the attention of people who had never heard of Lucas before. Now he was the center of attention on the internet, but for all the wrong reasons. Although Lucas posted a carefully worded apology on his social media, the reaction did not decrease. His subscriber count plummeted and finally he had no choice but to stop streaming completely. Sometime later, when I was leaving my office building after work, I saw Lucas waiting for me. His face was full of tears while he begged me, I can't take it anymore. I can't even go out without people staring at me or mocking me. Please help me. You are the only one I have truly loved. Let's get back together and be husband and wife again. I looked at him coldly and told him that if he continued harassing me, I would call the police. That was the last time I saw Lucas. Later I heard that the son Miriam had was not Lucas's after all. When the truth came out, it caused even more problems, more drama, and the two separated. I didn't let either of them get away with it. I demanded compensation from both. Lucas used the last of his savings to pay me, while Miriam had to borrow money from her parents to cover her part. As for Miriam, she tried to pressure the real father of her son, another streamer, to marry her, but he rejected her completely. With no other options, she returned to live with her strict parents, and now she is raising the child there. I really hope the child grows up healthy and happy despite everything. Lucas's situation only worsened. After paying me, he was left completely ruined. The companies he had worked with demanded damages for harming their image, leaving him with nothing. When he went to his family for help, his decent and responsible parents cut ties with him, ashamed of his behavior. Now, from what I have heard, Lucas lives alone in a rundown apartment, a shadow of the person he once was. Even knowing all this, I feel no sympathy for him. As for me, I have returned to my single life and I am completely focused on my work. I couldn't continue living in the condo I shared with Lucas, so I put it up for sale. It is a new beginning and I feel lighter than ever. It turned out that property values had risen in recent years, so I made a good profit when I sold the condo. I also sold the car that Lucas and Miriam had been using to an acquaintance. With that money, I bought myself a new car. Once everything calmed down, my sister, who had been a great help, told me, "Good job, Elena. Just think of him as a dog that bit you. Forget about him and move on. But next time, don't choose a man just because he is cute, okay?" She was right. This whole experience taught me something important. I think I am done with marriage. I realized that living for my work suits me much better. Now that I live in a new place in a condo in a tower that I recently bought, the best part is that this apartment allows pets. Now that my work life has calmed down, I plan to finally get the cat I always dreamed of having. From now on, I want to focus on the things I have to do, take care of myself, and live a positive and fulfilling life. Thank you for listening to today's story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. See you in the next story.